Hey there, siblings! Welcome to day 1 of learning background or environment. I actually want to do this for the New Year's, like a New Year's resolution. But considering my track history, I know I will procrastinate until the next 3 years, so might as well do it now. I will be learning from Genshin Impact's environment, which is very beautiful and colorful and also stylized, which is great because I have difficulties learning from real photographs. I'm collecting references from Pinterest because they have great in-game screenshots. I don't like using my own screenshots because my composition, much like my cooking, is pretty tasteless. For the first study, I think it's better to avoid drawing buildings because of the perspective. It's giving me acid reflux. Today I will focus on organic stuff like rocks, vegetation, and water. Alright, this takes no time at all, and we are done. Yeah, okay, that was terrible. This is why I only draw characters with their heads chopped off. I literally cannot draw anything else. Starting with the sky is a great start for the base. I see there's a bit of perspective, so I will try using Ibispaint's ruler to sort of... okay, how do you... You know what? We don't need those fancy newfangled Gen Z rulers. There's a good old technique called eyeballing it, and that's what I'm using throughout this video. It may sound stupid, because it is, but my brain cannot handle perspective at the moment. I feel like using color right away makes it hard to paint. So as a wise man once said, when it's getting harder to paint, use grayscale. Actually, nobody said it. The colors are distracting, so I'm switching to grayscale, which is also good for rendering practices. I feel that painting organic stuff is all about texture. Like rocks have different textures. Some are smooth, some are rough and jagged, etc. Genshin Impact's characters are drawn and modeled in anime style, but their environment has a semi-realistic look to it. The shape and textures are already simplified, so you don't have to squeeze your brain trying to simplify these things. Having said that though, my execution sucks so bad. I cannot seem to grasp how texture works in a rock. It might be a good idea to practice the elements individually before drawing the whole environment, but that's New Year's problems. Focusing on the overall painting is important instead of the details, so try to work on the big shapes first. I'm really frustrated about the texture and keep coming back to work on it, but you should not do that. Do not hyper-focus on something. I really hate drawing vegetations because it's really detailed and the leaves are like super tiny. I don't know if there's leaf brushes I can use. I don't really want to check now because I'm lazy, but from my experience, default leaf brushes never looks good. They just suck. Should I just summon my inner Monet and go full Impressionism? So Impressionism focuses more on the essence of the moment instead of the details. Take this painting for an example. As you can see, this painting is not necessarily detailed or tidy, but it's water lilies. I was so bitter when I was in college because I got this painting assignment with acrylic paint and canvas, and I really liked Monet's style at the time, so I tried to copy it. Turns out, my lecturer didn't like Impressionism and preferred hyper-realistic stuff, so I only got like a B or something. And I was like, what a fucking ass. But for the sake of this video, I will try my best to draw all the details. Well, not all of it, you know what I mean. By the way, I didn't really time my progress. I just know that for this painting, I spent a few hours, maybe like 6. I'm a really slow artist. And for the next painting, I spent more than a day to finish. That includes procrastinating, crying, looking at Christmas stuff, look at them glutes, rolling all over the floor, the usual art progress. So maybe around 48 hours for both paintings, give or take. Another reason why I prefer to learn from Genshin or other games and paintings is that drawing environment is kind of abstract. Like there's no anatomy or guidelines except for buildings or cityscapes, that is. But take clouds for example. There is no designated shapes for clouds, so you can basically just do whatever. But it would also look weird if you just do whatever. So like, what the cloud? Anyway, the way Genshin simplifies their cloud is really cute. They look really fluffy and simple enough for my lizard brain to comprehend. I still don't like my rock painting, so I will overlay this texture I found online. Hopefully it helps a little bit. It is time to finally add some colors. I prefer using Procreate to add colors because they have more comprehensive color adjustment tools, but for environment study, I think Ibispaint is good enough. This coloring method is called glazing. I'm not good at it yet, but I will explain more in future videos once I get the hang of it. But basically, I use blending modes and color adjustment tools or filters such as hue and saturation, brightness and contrast, and color balance. I usually use curve as well, but it's not free in Ibispaint, so normally I move to Procreate for this. I wanna color the rocks purple, like in Genshin reference, but why does mine look so weird? Looks really bad, like a rotten rock. I feel like I should have used a reference with fewer colors for my first time painting environments. The more I paint this, the more I'm confident that this environment is way above my skill level. I will finish up this painting real quick. It's basically just glazing at this point, and I'm not competent enough at it to explain to you what I'm doing. So I will overcompensate by putting up a cool transition of the finished painting. Yeah, it's pretty cool. For the second practice, we are traveling to Sumeru, and this will be our reference. Again, I got this from Pinterest. This is not my screen capture. The colors are fewer compared to the previous reference, but I will turn it into grayscale so it's easier to study. Wait, is that Dignity? It's so small. The reference looks great because the roots and trees sort of frame the environment and you can easily tell the object of interest. This will not be 100% similar, but that's fine. It's a study after all. It's a learning chance. I'm stupid, you're stupid, we're all stupid. That's why we're learning to be not so stupid. The center of this painting is of course the house. I really like how Genshin designed the houses and buildings in Sumeru. They're really beautiful and unique. Since the house is round, you don't have to worry too much about perspective, which is good. Similar with drawing portraits, make sure your reference have good lighting and shadows as well. One of the ways to test if you have good references is to turn them into grayscale so you can see the values clearly. But screen captures from games usually have great lighting. Aside from rocks, I might need to learn how to render plants and trees as well. I'm really bad at drawing trees, despite having to constantly draw them during primary school. I cannot even differentiate trees. Despite having few colors, I just realized this environment has a lot of elements in it. They have a significant amount of plants compared to the last one. Oh, and I just noticed that the house has windows on it, which means we are going to do some perspective, which means I'm going to eyeball so hard in this painting. Okay, jokes aside, if you're serious about learning environment and becoming professional artist, don't just eyeball stuff. Because from what I've heard from people's stories in the industry, they care more about how well you grasp perspective rather than how pretty your painting is. So learn perspective properly. For texture, I think it's much quicker if you're using readily available materials and then overlay it on your painting. But I wanna try painting it manually with round brush because I like living on the edge. It does take a toll on your wrist though, so proceed with caution. I'm wondering what type of references Genshin used for this house specifically. It's really cute, but also like really huge and spacious. I know the perspective is all wrong because I don't use any guideline, but I really don't want to deal with perspective right now. As long as it doesn't look too goofy, it deserves a pass from me because my standard is very low. For this painting, I'm only using one brush, which is pencil graphite. I've mentioned this brush countless times because people keep asking me, even though I've made one video dedicated to this brush. So, similar to character painting, people also have different styles for environment drawing. I like mine stylized because you can sort of create the texture with round brush and you don't need like custom brushes. I also like my environment to have a fantasy look to it because it helps build imagination. You like floating houses or floating dogs or floating shrimps, go for it, it's a fantasy. But if you're into a realistic look, having a texture and shape library might help you a lot. Realistic environment requires much more detail than stylized, in my opinion. And you should probably learn from real photographs. Wow, Genshin is also really detailed on their environment design, huh? I thought since their character design is really detailed, they would take it easy on the environment, but I was wrong. During this painting process, I just realized that I hate drawing flowers. Or are they leaves? I don't know. I just hate drawing them. I don't get how their shadows work and why are there so many of them? They're like bunched up together. There is this tiny house outside the big round house. Or maybe is it their mailbox? When painting from blobs doesn't work, do not hesitate to erase the whole thing and sketch the shapes to guide you. At first I was like,
oh, but I worked so hard drawing those blocks. Wah.
but you know, sometimes you gotta make sacrifices. These leaves look like tiny umbrellas, it's really cute. This is why I like fantasy environments. You can have anything as a roof. Painting this tree took a quarter of my lifespan, so I'm going to copy paste and edit the brightness to make the other trees. I don't want to sacrifice my wrist just to draw trees. How am I supposed to draw Alhaitham and his big heart? For the tiny leaves, I will try using the leaf shower brush. I will adjust the brush setting for a bit, making it seems like I know what I'm doing. Okay, so I tried it. It looks promising at first, but it looks really out of place in the end, so I redo it with a round brush. If you guys know a good leaf brush, please let me know in the comments. I really need one. This is hurting my wrist. I will not put too much work on the space behind the house because I will blur it later to direct more focus on the house. Alright, it's finally time to add the colors with the glazing method. Hopefully I can do a better job than the last one. Let me just say though, Genshin's color harmony always amazes me. I don't know if the person who uploaded this made some edits beforehand, but the shade of greens and blues Genshin uses works really great together. The colors from the last reference are really pretty as well. Color harmony is really important in environment painting because it creates mood and nuance. So I really recommend learning from your favorite games and animations or from movies if you prefer realism, because they usually already do some color grading, so you won't have to eyeball the color combination. What I don't like about glazing is that you can lose the details and definition when you add the colors, so I'm going to repaint some details real quick. But all in all, this is a great break from drawing only portraits. Genshin's environments are really pretty and simplified really well, so it's easy to learn from. That is all, and take a look at this cool transition.